So thank you to everyone for joining us today for this webinar. We're super excited to share this information with you and really hope that you'll get a lot out of the hour that we have together, although we're going to try and keep it to just under an hour for you guys so we don't take up too much of your work day. So first, just a few housekeeping items. So all attendees are muted and in listen only mode. So if you're trying to comment or ask questions, unfortunately, we can't hear you. If you do have any questions, we're going to answer all of those at the end of the webinar. So you can just submit your questions in the little Q&A section of the Zoom app. Don't put it under the chat functionality, just put it under the Q&A section so that we can make sure we don't miss it. We're going to be asking 2 poll questions during the webinar. So if you could please participate by just selecting your answer in the little poll window that pops up, then we'll be able to get kind of a sense of where you guys are all sitting in relation to the topics that we're going to be covering today. And last but not least, we will be sharing a copy of this recording with all of the participants after the webinar. So you don't need to worry about taking any notes or jotting anything down. We're going to send you a copy. And if you also had any other colleagues that weren't able to make it onto the call today, if they registered, they'll also get a copy. And if not, then you can share yours with them. So just to tell you a little bit about who we are, your presenters for today. I'm Kate Abernethy. I'm the Director of Marketing here at Blueprint. I've been here for about 2 years, and I've really grown my passion for software development over that time, and I just find that this topic that we're presenting today is really, really interesting. And I'm also joined by Aman Bala, who's our VP of Product Management. Aman, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hey, everybody. My name is Aman Bal, as Kate mentioned. I've been with Blueprint now for just over 5.5 years, and I'm really excited to talk to everybody today about the evolution of requirements management into the modern world.
All right, so what are we going to cover in our time here today? So first we're going to start talking about today's enterprise challenges and that real enterprise context that many of you are living within. From there, we're going to move on to the 3 culprits of complexity that are really making all of this so much more challenging for all of you. We're going to go on to discuss how you can find solutions to these challenges in an old friend, maybe a surprising old friend. From there, we're going to talk about some of the necessary requirements for doing modern requirements management. We're going to look at some user personas for modern RM tools, 5 rules to guide your tool selection, and then at the end we'll just wrap up with how we might be able to help you with some of these challenges and answer any questions that you guys submit. So starting off today's discussion, we're starting to talk about all the internal and external pressures that are impacting how you do your jobs. But before we get to that, I just wanted to run our first of 2 polls. So here we go. So here's the question, and you'll just see the poll window pop up in a second. So which of these challenges are causing your organization the most pain? Is it needing to develop products faster than ever before, but still managing quality and technical debt? Managing design complexities created by increasing compliance requirements? Managing design complexities created by increasing customer demand? Or is it the ability to see the bigger picture or maintaining that context at the enterprise scale? So I'm just going to launch our poll now. So you all should see that poll window up on your screen, and you can start selecting your answers. All right, we're having some responses coming in. All right, for those of you who haven't voted yet, we're just going to keep this poll open for a couple more seconds, so get your answers in there. All right, so we'll close the poll now. Thank you to everyone who participated.
Wow, so that's quite interesting, Kate.
All right.
We're seeing that most of the respondents and the attendees need to develop products faster than ever before while still managing quality and technical debt. That's kind of the same thing we see amongst our customers as well. the business is demanding for them to drive faster and faster delivery. And they're just inundated of how to do that while trying to manage still producing quality code line and not a backlog of technical debt. It's a big challenge in the marketplace today, and it's reinforcing and to see that the attendees are also seeing that. So don't worry, you're not on your own. We're also hearing that from our customers as well.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It looks like 60% of you answered that way, so you're definitely not alone. All right, so moving on. So that leads kind of right into these big enterprise challenges that we're seeing today. So application development, delivery, business, and compliance leaders like yourselves are facing these challenges on all fronts. So first of all, you're facing needs to drive faster delivery more than ever before. To be successful, delivery velocity needs to increase, and that's just to keep up with the pack, never mind lead it. And at the same time, you're also faced with the challenge of managing quality and technical debt while trying to move at the speed of light. Alongside these challenges, compliance, risk, and customer demand are also increasing design complexity. Data security concerns, ensuring governance, managing high customer expectations, and delivering enhanced digital experiences drive the need for comprehensive design support to deal with the complexity and drive fast feedback into product development processes. And while Agile dictates interactions over processes and working software over documentation, managing compliance and delivering a great customer experience, especially in regulated industries, requires transparency and traceability delivered in an Agile context. And lastly, when we're talking about doing all of these things at enterprise scale, the ability to have that big picture context is absolutely critical to your success. Evolving smart automation capabilities and requirements management tools enhances requirements gathering, enabling teams to more easily and efficiently solicit and document better, more complete requirements. However, if there's no tangible link between these requirements, the higher level epics, business processes, customer journeys, and value streams that they're supporting, and then the development tasks that need to be completed, it becomes incredibly challenging for teams to access the critical context needed to see and understand the bigger picture. This results in unnecessary waste, misalignment, and downstream rework that could have been otherwise avoided. So all things that you really don't want to be happening when you're working at that enterprise scale.
So let's really start talking a bit about what we mean about context and enterprise context a little bit deeper. So when we talk about context, we need to start talking about the constituents. In other words, those whose needs we're required to address. So this, of course, will differ from organization to organization because no two contexts are the same. But I've genericized here just to see what our customers are dealing with. And so we have regulators, we have business or multiple lines of business, customers, and what we call architecture and infrastructure. That's more about abstract capturing of internal and technology-driven needs that we have to address. The other thing is that these are more like, I'd say, categories versus any one individual stakeholder. And they get very complex quickly. So again, when you're talking about large global enterprises, we have regulators, for example. These can range from anything like regulatory agencies driven by legislation, and they have power to levy fines and penalties, to standard organizations who issues guidelines and standards, where it's often the customers who compel the business to abide. And then we're talking about large and global organizations, right? So they span many jurisdictions around the world in multiple levels: federal, state, provincial, and even municipal, right? And they all have their own regulations, and it can get very complex when they all interrelate with each other and can sometimes contradict each other. And they range from abstract, principle-based to detailed, perceptive, and are changing and being updated almost continuously. So you can see that this world is just constantly changing. Each of these other constituents explodes in terms of complexity as well in the same manner. So for example, again, when you look at the customer, many of our customers have a very complex customer landscape. We have customers in multiple markets, they span numerous personas, and there's a whole portfolio of interrelated customer journeys that are very different mapped out. So if we're trying to capture all of the elements that need to be considered and accounted for, all of this is what we're calling enterprise context, the environment in which we're asking our groups to build large-scale systems around, and the broad range of needs that need to be taken into account from all the different constituents that we just discussed. So we've seen that large enterprises really struggle to get their arms around all these things that need to be considered as they're trying to go agile, right? We're trying to move faster, be more responsive, deliver more value to our customers. Yet most large-scale enterprises that we encounter are still struggling to transform and or scale agile in their organization. So I'm sure by now you're all sitting at your desk thinking, damn, how in the world am I going to make sure my company is accounting for all these elements in the products we're building? So we'll get to the main reasons why organizations have struggled with this, as well as providing advice on how your organization can capture and understand and utilize all these elements of the enterprise context effectively. But first, we're going to add some additional salt to the wound we've been highlighting and talk about the three major culprits of complexity that are making all this even more challenging. And so I'll pass it on to Kate to talk about those.
Right, thanks, Amin. So, within that context, you're already facing such a big challenge in terms of making sure nothing's falling through the cracks, everybody's aligned, and then at the same time, you now have all of these additional elements of complexity being added, and they're only increasing from here. So the first major culprit of complexity is changing regulations. So the notion of regulated versus non-regulated industries is pretty much a thing of the past. Equifax spilled its customers' personal information. The EU's General Data Protection Regulation, or GDPR, is officially in effect. And Mark Zuckerberg was brought before Congress to answer for Facebook's role in the Cambridge Analytica scandal. So regulators and lawmakers are paying attention to data privacy and security like never before. Companies must be stewards of data, whether internal, customer, partner, or third party. And regulations like GDPR touch companies of all industries. Fines for non-compliance could cost a company up to 4% of its annual revenue. And if we're talking about organizations in the financial services industry, as many of our customers are and many of you on the phone today are, they actually just released the third quarter of the 2019 Banking Compliance Index report. It was released last week, actually, and it revealed that there was a 41% increase in the overall level of effort required by financial institutions just to keep up with regulatory change. The hours consumed in change efforts jumped from 46% from the second quarter, and when comparing this year to Q3 of 2018, effort is up 28%. Probably one of the most surprising stats actually for me is that the hours consumed by regulatory change management and implementations are up a whopping 85% from this time last year. So this Banking Compliance Index is published quarterly by Continuity's Regulatory Operations Center, and it quantifies the incremental burden on financial institutions in keeping up with regulatory changes. So that's just a little bit of highlighting information of how this is really impacting kind of a big chunk of our customers and a good deal of you who are on the phone today. So jumping back to the other two culprits of complexity, the second one we see is changing products. Products are evolving as digital channels become critical to companies' operations. In February, an outage at BB&T Bank left millions of disgruntled customers without access to ATMs and online and mobile banking services. As more customers expect consistent access across multiple channels, leaders like yourselves must ensure that they can deliver on these expectations. The expansion of digital is also permeating to physical products. Nowadays, products merge hardware, software, and connectivity, enabling software-based upgrades to physical products' capabilities. As this evolution continues, software will manage and upgrade products from coffee makers to traffic signals. Development teams must now add a new level of complexity by tracking the limitations and specs of physical products and aligning them with software releases. Failure to do so could be an endanger to customer satisfaction or even their well-being. And then the third one here we have is changing processes. So Agile development has clear benefits, but firms still struggle to make their Agile transformation a company-wide reality. In fact, according to Forrester's Global Agile Software Application Development Survey, only 20% of respondents have said they've been able to effectively scale Agile enterprise-wide after using it in small teams. Teams are also struggling to work in distributed locations while following a methodology that emphasizes co-location and collaboration. Development teams are flocking to guides like the Scaled Agile Framework, or SAFe, that provide a disciplined way to move from individual teams practicing Agile to an Agile product organization. However, malignancies continue to arise when application development and delivery leaders fail to properly govern and manage Agile. Failure to maintain that big picture view across sprints sows the seeds of technical debt, which can become fiercely and financially crippling over time. For example, one company we're aware of had a delay to product go to market by 5.5 months after it ignored architecture and solely focused on delivery speed with Agile. So with all of these things adding a significant amount of complexity, especially at the enterprise scale, work management tools like Jira, Rally, version 1, or whatever other tool you're using, they're just not enough to provide that larger context needed to understand the bigger picture of what's required. So where do you go from here? Well, according to Forrester, app delivery and product management teams, in addition to keeping up with their current responsibilities, may find a solution to the new challenges they face in an old friend, requirements management tools. These provide governance, structure, and discipline even within an Agile development environment, and that helps leaders handle these growing complexities. In fact, Forrester then goes on to say that the impression of requirements management tools doesn't do justice to the market today. Many people think that these tools only cater to highly regulated industries with limited capabilities, but this market has changed quite a bit from those days. When evaluating the modern market, you need to understand that what binds a successful solution together is its ability to assist with elicitation, definition, and management of all software requirements, regardless of your industry, as governance compliance, while operating efficiently and effectively, affects everyone.
Wow, Kate, that's honestly like a good picture in terms of what's going on with the market today, as well as Forrester's view on the world. They also see that there's an evolution here to the modern requirements management platform with new capabilities enabling application development and delivery professionals to, firstly, drive reuse by integrating with other development tools. So we've established that there's platforms that must have vastly expanded integration with planning tools like Jira, design tools, testing tools, and source code repositories like Git that give teams end-to-end traceability within a DevOps environment. So we need to be able to support common libraries of common requirements and best practices that span programs regardless of the development methodologies. And really that's a necessity. So that combined with the integration with tools that support the SDLC lets users reuse requirements and components on other products more easily, allowing enterprises to accelerate their development while de-risking it as well. Next, the major capability is being able to leverage intelligence to refine and speed up requirements, elicitation, and definition. Here we see that there's AI and machine learning features that are emerging in all of today's software, and that remains true as well for modern requirements platforms, where we see Storyteller deploy natural language processing and intelligence to automate the ingestion of compliance requirements, the ability to parse and tag them accordingly, and creating a well-defined backlog of work to then be interpreted. Not only that, but we use intelligence to suggest requirements based on design elements in order to accelerate delivery while minimizing risk. Next, we know that collaboration across geographies and across functional silos is critical. Any large enterprise has folks that are sitting in seats across the world in different departments and organizations, and requirements management platforms are the essential hub of communication in early stages of the development lifecycle. So as teams are becoming more and more agile, they require more real-time feedback as well as collaboration capabilities. Integration with collaboration tools like Slack are now relevant than ever before. And this allows developers to interact with business users, in real time for faster feedback. And for teams that are scaling product development and are much more mature, platforms such as a Storyteller offer transparencies across multiple teams regardless of their development approach, as well as provide an engine to package up artifacts in an easy distributable feedback package and track e-signatures if needed for future audit needs. Next, Forrester mentions that the auto generation of downstream assets is a core capability for modern requirements management tool, and the push for faster delivery creates one of the biggest challenges Agile teams face, and that's technical debt. As we saw in our poll, it's really resonating with the folks and the attendees on the call today. And so increasing test automation as part of a continuous build and integration process drives up quality without sacrificing speed. Modern requirements management platforms assist enterprises generating downstream assets from visual models and ensuring completeness of requirements while driving those efficiencies that we all need. So from those visual models, users can then automatically trigger generation of user stories and test cases and send those to downstream work management tools like Jira or QA testing tools such as Tosca or HPALM, QA Symphony, just to name a few. And then lastly, we know that leveraging visual modeling is absolutely critical for any robust requirements management solution. And we're going to spend a little bit more time on this one because we believe that it's really important. I'm going to pass it on to Kate to dive into this one a little bit deeper now.
Thanks, Aman. Yeah, we've added this one on because Forrester actually didn't name it within kind of one of its core capabilities, but when we look at our platform, Storyteller, this is actually one of the core capabilities that we hear from our customers is really impacting their ability to see that big picture context. And we believe that, it really is one of those necessary things. So when large organizations try to shift from traditional requirements practices to Agile, they often encounter a number of challenges. Products are too complex, business stakeholders and business analysts don't know how to transform with these traditional practices being so deeply embedded. The reality is that most of the people responsible for requirements are either new to Agile, with their role being recently transformed, don't know how to write user stories, and then they also live daily in outdated tools that don't scale or are non-collaborative like Microsoft Office. On the other hand, most development teams use Agile techniques every day to do their work with user stories to derive tasks and tests, and live daily in an Agile task management tool like Jira. So how can we bridge the gap between them? This is often the place where most organizations get stuck in their Agile transitions because no matter how hard they try, they're still unable to reconcile these differences. So we believe that by leveraging visualizations to create Agile process models, you can bridge that gap. Why? In many ways, Agile process models and user stories are really similar. They're both used to describe how systems will respond when users interact with them. They both represent a journey from an end user's perspective, and they both provide information to developers and testers that they need to do their work. But in addition to this, Agile process models are also familiar to all. They're visual, and so that makes it very easy to understand and boost collaboration. They're flexible, so they can be used to describe high-level, detailed processes from both a user and system perspective, and can be interrelated to represent the hierarchies of processes and sub-processes. Their variations are virtually endless, but they're still intuitively understandable. And they're also really simple to construct. So people have been using Microsoft Office and Visio for decades to create process models, and most modern requirements tools that support visualization, including Storyteller, use simple, similar drag and drop interfaces for diagramming processes.
So user stories come to life when paired with the Agile process model. In many ways, those Agile process models, with its multiple steps and pathways, represent a collection of individual user stories. And so with a set of well-written hierarchical Agile process models that represent user journeys, we can easily analyze and decompose processes into individual user stories for the development team. So what we end up with is higher quality user stories because they're connected to the big picture. They connect high-level business processes to those lower development tasks, and the development team can see those user stories in context. And the upstream and downstream traceability also enables improved impact analysis as well as change management. Next, we can also see that there's aligned by a broader community. So the visualization engages people to come in. Your business, your technical stakeholders are more likely to get involved. There's a shared language of flows that enables everyone to review and provide feedback in a familiar manner, and it's less likely that key stakeholders will be missed. It's also easier to write complete, well-formed stories. The information needed to write stories in a set of familiar visual models can easily understand and convert to well-written Agile requirements. So those Agile process models also provide a framework for organizing user stories in an understandable visual way. And they're easier to understand. Business people can reference these models to understand how user stories were derived. Technical stakeholders have more information from which to draw on when creating their development tasks. And over time, everybody becomes more familiar with the construct of the user stories and how they fuel the development team. So if your business stakeholders and business analysts are struggling to write good user stories, change your frame of reference. Derive user stories from well-written Agile process models, and people begin to share the same language. So that's the power of pairing them together. So we're going to jump into our next poll now. And we want to understand, based on where you are today, which one of these would your organization need the most help with? Kate, can you go ahead and launch the poll?
All right, so we'll be launching our next poll now. So based on where you are today, which of these would your organization need the most help with? So we're just launching the poll now. So you'd like to submit your answers. All right, we've got some good answers coming in. All right, so we'll just give it another 10, 15 seconds here, and then we'll close this poll. All right, so we'll wrap it up now. It looks like we've got most of the attendees responding here. All right, so looking at these final results, they're quite interesting there, Amin, aren't they?
Yeah, it seems like there's a pretty even split between the most help needed with balancing Agile techniques with rigid regulatory and audit requirements, as well as being able to deliver quickly without sacrificing quality. So another theme that resonates from the first poll that we had launched is trying to go quickly while trying to manage the overhead of all this baggage that's there in terms of operating in a large enterprise, which is, those regulatory requirements, compliance needs, as well as being able to go back in time and support an audit function. So very cool responses indeed. And we think we have some very interesting content that'll help you coming up in the next few slides.
Yeah, so looking at modern requirements management, factors such as regulation, security, and software development techniques are going to influence the depth and breadth of the requirements detail. As a result, the best tool for most teams will probably be a combination of tools that varies depending on the alignment and complexity of your development initiatives. However, if you're looking to improve requirements elicitation and management with tools, regardless of whatever tool you do choose, these requirements are kind of requirements for whatever tool you're looking for. So whatever you are looking for, make sure that your tool is able to do these things. So the first is bringing transparency to large, complex programs. So enterprise level programs require project managers to wrangle multiple simultaneous projects that require input from largely non-technical subject matter experts that are accustomed to working in documents. So to communicate these more effectively, make sure your teams can deliver successful deliverables. You must make sure these managers move from disconnected systems to collaborative repository-based design and requirements tools. Likely the best fit solution for you looking to fill this capacity is both requirements management and paired with an ALM tool such as Jira or version 1 to make sure you're properly tracking, capturing and tracking those complex requirements as you move through the process. The second one you're going to want to make sure is in your tool is that it's able to balance Agile techniques with those rigid regulatory and audit requirements. So organizations like yourselves want to deliver products faster, but are subjected to strict compliance rules to avoid financial risk or public censure. Product approval requires extensive proof of requirements traceability and test coverage. Professionals here will need both traditional and modern Agile requirements tools to support those linear planning of devices or physical products while also iterating quickly on embedded software. An integrated requirements platform allows you to then create a system of record and optimize that compliance reporting. And lastly, you're going to want to make sure that your tool allows you to deliver quickly without sacrificing quality. So digital teams working on mission critical applications must meet rising customer expectations without exposing their companies to risk. Agile product owners at these kind of companies will be disappointed by traditional requirements tools that don't really support continuous planning and delivery. Teams here instead should look to Agile planning, design, and modern requirements modeling tools that integrate into test automation that allows lightweight documentation while maintaining traceability. Below, you'll see some of the key features that will drive those requirements.
All right, Kate, now that we're talking about modern requirements management tools, it's really important to understand the difference here, that the technology we've been talking about is to define the work that's to be done. We're not telling folks to get rid of their tools meant for managing work, and that's tools like Jira, Rally, version 1, or any other ALM tool for that matter. We're instead saying that you need to be able to add in the necessary context needed to understand the bigger picture, such as a modern requirements management tool to pull in all that enterprise context information on the left side in order to improve the situation dramatically and remove the biggest inhibitors to scaling. So that means bringing in all the information and artifacts and context into a common place to help organize it, version it, ensure it's interrelated, it's searchable, accessible, and it's there for you to go back to and audit if needed, a part of your process. And so that means applying a lightweight visual modeling to help handle complexity. And what we've just talked about and having that all together and accessible opens the door to some unique automation opportunities to help take away some overhead and make things far more efficient. So that means applying technology to define work. In other words, define the solution we want to build that is then fed into tools like Jira to manage the building of it. And that's done iteratively, and that's important to note. And that's at the same cadence as work management tools in Jira. And so you're progressing in lockstep and not doing big upfront analysis, waterfall-esque kind of work.
All right, we were going to cover some of these kind of main user personas, but in the interest of time and making sure we can get to some of the questions that have been submitted, we're going to pass over this one, but you'll receive this within the recording, so you'll be able to come back to these slides. And mostly we were kind of looking at specific user personas and tracking that from some of their end goals, some of their common pain points, and then how these modern RM tools specifically help within their use cases. But we're just going to jump over this one for now because we're going to get to the part that I think is going to be really helpful for a lot of you. So 5 rules to help guide your tool selection. So when you're looking at tools, it's really important to think about what you need in terms of the outcomes. What does your team struggle to do effectively? Some common motivations are usually to first determine your elicitation requirements. If you're looking to maintain compliance, you need a level of documentation that can survive an audit. For mission critical systems where safety or highly technical design are the primary concern, modern elements such as AI, user story auto generation, and improved collaboration can really help accelerate this development. But you'll need to keep traditional requirements management that supports visualization, traceability, and test coverage as well. If speed is essential and test results are an appropriate form of feedback, stick with something more like an enterprise agile planning solution, which also falls under these modern requirements management tools. Second, you're going to want to size your potential for technical debt. If quality is your problem, then it's time to automate. Organizations with mature Agile practices employ automated continuous integration and testing tools to drive up quality in their applications. Organizations that are transitioning to Agile should look to Agile planning tools that allow them to auto-generate user stories and then integrate with testing and source code tools to increase that test coverage. You'll also want to recognize that successful Agile at scale requires automation. Individual teams can get by with old school whiteboards and Post-its, but large-scale Agile requires more governance and structure. Team-level Agile planning tools are the most obvious place to start, but look to solutions that can bring together data to monitor cross-team performance as well as identify potential roadblocks. Fourth, you're going to want to figure out the importance of design. User experience makes or breaks a customer-facing application. We all know this. Design tools combined with other requirements tools become a dynamic duo. These design tools make elicitation and management more intuitive for users and when you leverage design wireframes and intricate design to augment other forms of requirements management, you can really find success. And lastly, you'll want to select your tools with integration in mind. So once you know your objectives and the type of work that you will use to manage them, think next about the integration you'll need to help drive that faster elicitation, tracking, and test coverage.
So finally now, before we get to the Q&A portion of the webinar, we really wanted to tell you a little bit just about Storyteller. And so Storyteller is a modern requirements management platform. It was purpose-built to address these challenges and provide the needed functionality and business context necessary to properly manage the elicitation, definition, and management of requirements in an agile and regulated enterprise in order to build and deliver high quality and compliant products significantly faster. And that's at a vastly reduced cost and exposure to risk. So here on this slide, you can check out some of the capabilities that Storyteller provides, but we definitely, if you're interested, you'll see later on in the webinar a way to contact us for more information for a demo.
Yeah, so like Aman said, we've really built Storyteller to speak to all of those challenges that we know enterprises are facing, to provide that enterprise context, and to really support and allow you to get way more out of those other ALM tools and testing tools that you're using, because you'll have that traced enterprise context from the very highest levels of value streams all the way down to each individual user story or deliverable. You know, even outside of Storyteller, even if you select a different requirements management platform, we hope that you found some great information in today's webinar. If you are looking to speak with us about Storyteller, there's a couple different ways that you can do that. So you can either discuss how Storyteller, reach out to us and we'd love to have a discussion with you about how we can add context and value to your existing ALM tools. And then from there, we'll be able to schedule a product demo so that you can see Storyteller in action. So the place that you can go to submit that request is to www.blueprintsys.com/get-started. And within there, you'll provide us a little bit of information and let us know a little bit about yourselves, and we'll be able to reach back out to you. So that is it for today. It looks like we've been able to give you just a couple minutes back in your afternoon, but we really appreciate you all taking the time to listen to us today and to join us on today's call. So we wish you all a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next time. Thanks so much.